Hey everybody, thank you for joining. This is pretty exciting for me, working with a bunch of different partners in the ecosystem, and I actually have not met before any of the guests, which as a very old person in e-commerce is kind of strange. I know you guys all by your LinkedIn profiles, but I don't actually think we've ever been on a call, which is pretty cool for me. So we're going to jump in. We're going to definitely talk a little bit about AI, a little bit about tariffs, some other fun topics out there. But first things first, I'd love to get an intro from each of you and more of a proper intro, not just like, hey, I'm Zach, I'm from here, but also like a little bit about your agency, what you guys do. And if there's anything like salient in your background to help you get to where you are, I think that'd be wonderful. So Zach, I'm gonna start with you, and then Elliot, I'm gonna kick it to you, and Matt, last but not least, take it away.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Zac Fromson. I'm one of the co-founders at Lilo Social. We're a full funnel growth agency, working across paid and retention for all the brands that we partner here with. Kind of been in the space here for about 10 years or so here. Been with Lilo since about 2018 as we kind of made things official. Team about 50 here, so kind of really continue to build, to grow across the board. Playbill lead agency, so spending a lot of time here in the paid space, but also real deep in retention marketing as well. So excited to be here with everyone and excited to see what we talk about.
Thanks, man. Zach, just a quick follow-up. So with Klaviyo, right, obviously like kind of core partnership, are there other like big partners that you guys kind of are like big tech that you're kind of working most closely with, whether it's on the SMS side or loyalty or anything else that is kind of like in your obvious stack?
Yeah, I mean, Stack's pretty deep. Klaviyo, one of our main retention partners, we do spend a little bit of time with Attentive and Postscript as well. They're just obviously main players, especially, as it comes to SMS. And then I guess like additional apps outside of that, yeah, working with, Akendos, Wonderments, Stack goes deep. I won't run through everybody, but yeah, we're working pretty heavily within the Shopify ecosystem.
Dude, I love it. All right, we'll come back. I think, Elliot, I picked on you next. So proper intro, please. I'd love to hear it.
Cool. So, hey everyone, my name is Elliot Kovac. I think I'm the only Canadian on this call. I'm based in Montreal. If anyone has a chance to come over, come in the summer, beautiful city. And basically, just to give you a little bit about my background, I previously, before focusing on retention, started my agency Dispatch. I worked as a director of e-commerce at an 8-figure apparel brand. So started off my career in e-com in 2019, just the end. So kind of right before COVID, when everyone in e-commerce thought they were a genius. And basically I started doing everything from stocking the shelves to learning organic social, learning influencer marketing, learning paid social, retention, everything that had to play into e-com. Grew into the director of e-commerce there and grew the department from a 6-figure department to a 7-figure department rather quickly. I think I already said it, but everyone thought they were a genius back then, and everyone got a brutal wake-up call after iOS 14.5. So that was kind of my big intro into retention. iOS 14.5 hit. We had made all of our money on retargeting ads on Facebook at that time, and essentially got our legs cut off the day after iOS 14.5 hit. So I was the owner of the P&L for the department, and my boss basically came to me and said, I don't care about Facebook. I don't care about Apple. Just like, we need to grow profitably. And that's really when my focus shifted into owned marketing, email and SMS, and really understanding how the channels can help brands scale profitably. So I left that position in 2022 and have been focused on retention ever since. So I freelanced for a few select 8-figure brands for 6 to 8 months after I started my freelance journey. Officially started Dispatch in April of 2023. So we're just coming up on the end of our second full year as a full agency now. We are a team of 7 full-time based in North America. And essentially what Dispatch is we are basically a fractional retention marketing department that plugs into your brand. Really everything that we represent at Dispatch has come from my experience as a director of ecom and really being able to plug all of the different parts of the ecosystem into our retention marketing strategy. So like, we don't look at like a Klaviyo dashboard in a funnel and kind of just look at like open rates and click rates. We really are like focused on the full ecosystem and how every different app, every different touch point in the customer journey plays into strong retention marketing. So right now we work with just around 15, 7, 8-figure brands. And yeah.
Dude, I didn't realize you guys are only a couple years old. That's so interesting. I thought it'd been much longer. I want to come back at some point to talk about the influencer stuff. I do want to say that like I started a brand in 2010 and it was really easy pickings for a while where you could just like go acquire everybody on Facebook, like literally. And then at some point you had to pay to reach them and then you had to pay to acquire them. And I was like, wait, this used to be so easy. It sounds like you actually did the transition into not just doing the same thing over and over. I think I did not, which is why our business kind of fizzled out. So,
Got it. Yeah, definitely interesting times.
Yeah, man. All right, Matt, last but not least, and then don't worry, I've got a couple follow-ups for you because you've been waiting so patiently.
Great. Well, my name is Matt. I am the VP of Retention Marketing at QDL Agency. So we are a full funnel marketing agency with basically four main pillars. So we've got our retention marketing, our paid media, as well as creative. But what we're probably most well known for in the space is web dev or development. So we actually have a team of 16 full stack engineers, and we are a preferred white glove partner of Shopify here on where the company is based on the West Coast. I've been in marketing for about 10 years now, and then pivoted to agency life with a focus on email and SMS about 5 years ago. Sounds like Elliot and Zac also have kind of the same chops, and we're all a little bit crazy staying in the agency life so long, but I love it and happy to be here.
Thanks, Matt. Let me start with you. I mean, the fact that you guys have such breadth, right? I'm very curious, and maybe an unfair question because it's so broad, but like I'm sure you've heard there have been some tariffs that have happened, and like there's a lot going on in the world. If you think about the day in the life of your clients, what's been changing? Is it they're spending more thought on retention because, hey, we've already got these customers? Are they like, we actually need to grow quickly, so we're going to go spend more on like on Meta? Are they, let's go put our dollars towards dev to like refine our experience? Like how, if at all, have kind of your brands been changing their spend or their strategy in the short term?
Yeah, I think it really, at least from what we're seeing, it really comes down to the size of the company. So when we come to like mom and pop and what they sell, right? If it's a product that they're heavily reliant on international ingredients or parts, they are being impacted. I think the hardest part, just like the rest of the country, is the unknown, right? We don't know what tariffs look like today or tomorrow based on the whims of government directives. But, we've got for instance, we've got a small Ayurvedic beauty brand that recently had one of their printers for their special sustainable glass break. And the part is back ordered now for 6 months because of the tariffs. So it's not just in the sense of the bottom line, but it's also in the sense of the day to day. And what do we rely on that is no longer as easily sourced or is no longer as easily available. I would say that kind of in a more general sense, the larger of our brands that are more reliant on whether it's a 3PL or like clothing brands that have different items come from different parts of the world, they're definitely more in a scramble mode. Where some of our more smaller mom and pop brands, I think it's more of like status quo and they're just waiting to see and they're being a little bit more reactive than proactive.
Interesting. Thanks. Zac, I want to open up to you. What, if anything, are you seeing or what changes or any thoughts on Matt just shared?
Yeah, I mean, definitely topic of conversation we've been having for quite some time here with all the brands we work with. I mean, I think the impact is certainly being felt. I think the general consensus across our portfolio is that like everyone's probably okay and equipped to handle this in the short term if this doesn't last for a long time. I think a lot of brands are kind of feeding to us that if this is the new norm, this isn't going to go away, that like some people might not survive this. Some people are definitely going to get hurt from this like pretty substantially. So I think, yeah, there are a lot of moving parts, a lot of intangibles. I think like the general thesis right now is for us is like, what can we do in the short term to try to like cut costs? This isn't necessarily the time to add on new tech, add on new software, like hire aggressively, like get crazy. Like let's be a little bit more smart with ad spend. Let's be a little bit more thoughtful about inventory management. Some brands are like running short on inventory and things like that. So how hard are we pressing? Where are we pressing? Just trying to be a little bit more thoughtful to help like be is I guess cost effective and sustainable as we can in the short term, with the hope and theory that this is not long term. But I think like the effects will be severely damaging if this is the new norm, and this is this like likely will not be sustainable for a lot of companies.
Speaking about the like, hey, we're short on inventory, are you seeing any changes in discount strategy or just like thinking about, hey, we actually, because we're limited on inventory, we need to maximize the revenue from every single piece. And like, even if that means we string out our sales or.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see some brands like Unpaid and running this like tariff sale, right? And I think some of those brands are people that like are using that for like a lot of clothing brands are doing it right now and fashion that are trying to like blow out inventory, get rid of some product that like is just sitting around the warehouse and kind of using this as like a key moment to leverage. But I think like in general, like that's not, the best strategy, the best play for everyone in the SKUs. But I'm seeing a lot of fashion brands across the space want to leverage that as like a key moment, something to kind of talk about, just kind of trying to lean into it. And a lot of them are just like blowing out products in the warehouse that are just kind of taking up space, just trying to like free up cash to kind of be a little bit more aggressive in what they can do for the rebuys and just opening up dollars to restock up, knowing things are going to go up and trying to get better inventory management perspective, which is really, really difficult right now.
Yeah. Elliot, I want to turn it to you in terms of tariffs. And I know it's all like new and up in the air, but any big changes you're seeing from your brands or any discussions you're having that are surprising?
For sure. So transparently, most of the brands that we work with are in CPG, food and bev, and like most of the brands luckily don't rely on overseas manufacturing. There are a lot of obviously like components that will go into some of the products they sell, but like for their core product lines, it's not been anything that's like shaken any business models for any of our clients. Touching on what Zac said, when it comes to inventory management, we definitely have seen some brands approach us and just kind of want to have a little more like control or a little more input than they usually do on what products we're promoting. Like Zac said, just clear up inventory off those shelves, turn it into cash. So definitely like haven't seen anyone's business be shaken up yet, but I have seen brands just start talking a little more conservatively. And then obviously like on the flow side, we live in Klaviyo all day. We have seen like that traffic definitely slow down as I think brands are just going into defense mode a little more than usual.
It's interesting. I'll share a little bit about what we're seeing. Like obviously with Orita, but my background after I ran my brand for like 7 years, I started a company called Passport that does international shipping, and then I was at Loop Returns for a while. So like I'm like an investor advisor on just a ton of the ecosystem. I had a call this morning with a tech founder who used to run a brand who was sharing about a clothing company. I'm not going to even like give a hint, but that we would all know and be like, holy shit, these guys are crushing it. That is like maybe a cash out in July because of their production plans. And like they've been growing and they're monster, but there was no expectation of our product cost doubling and then some, and the inability to kind of switch. We have some customers of ours who are like extraordinary operators who have diversified their supply chain, and they're still disappointed, which is like, we don't know if we're going to make it. And so for a handful, what we're doing is we're just going to support you guys for free for a little while. Like, don't think about this as a cost. And the reason we've done that, and it's been interesting. I'm still kind of developing my opinion on this, but it feels like in a tight time, and I'm reflecting back to what it was like in the beginning of COVID when like everybody stopped everything, right? And then like they exploded very quickly, is how do you get the absolute most out of the people who know you and love you versus prospecting? I don't know, Matt, like you were kind of talking about, obviously you guys do so much, right? And I want to put you on the spot, but you're allowed to defer a little bit. In terms of like the paid approach, is there anything that's fundamentally changed even in the last month? Is it people are spending less in general on paid and performance marketing and acquiring new customers? Is it like there's actually a big shift towards retargeting to like go hit people who already know the brand? Is it channels have changed, or is it kind of like right now it's same old and we're just like figuring it out?
Yeah. I would say for the brands that we manage on the paid media side, and I don't want to overspeak. My director of paid media or VP of paid media is actually watching this call, so I'm sure he's going to text me and be like, "I'm going to shoot you
I
later."
heard you were saying before the call how amazing he is. Is like what
Yeah, he's an okay guy. I think I'll put it this way: brands that were struggling before are struggling more now, right? So when they were already kind of maybe on the bubble or paid media performance had slowed down, they're definitely the ones where we're just like you were saying, and Elliot, I believe, starting to take a little bit more focus on what's being shown, where the dollars are being spent, daily check-ins on how their traffic is doing. For the brands that already had momentum, and to what Zac was saying earlier too, are sitting on a little bit of excess inventory, I think it's a little bit of the same old, same old. And now it's just like refining. I would say instead of, it's probably shrunk down our testing capabilities a little bit, and the same thing on retention, even though there's not a direct correlation of dollars spent there, but there's less room to wiggle to be like, hey, let's launch 30 different creatives and tests. And now it's like, let's focus on these ones that we know really work to move product that we have. Instead of risking it in other areas. So I'd say for the majority of our clients, it's a bit of status quo right now, but I expect that to change as inventory goes down for sure. And of course, if anything major changes with tariffs, or especially with tariffs on China in particular, we've got a lot of clothing brands that are heavily reliant on parts and different fabrics from China. So I would expect some changes there. But like right now, one of our clothing brands is running their huge annual warehouse sale that they do every spring, and they didn't change their approach at all. So in fact, we've ramped up spend on that front and sent out probably more emails than we ever have before. But again, I think that's bound to change once summer comes and we start, if this tariff world still exists and doesn't change or gets worse, at that point, we're probably going to be having a lot of tough conversations surrounding Q4.
Yeah. I like the framing of like the people who are doing well before are probably doing well now. We've had this with some of the enterprise brands that we serve, where I was asking like, hey, you worried? What's going on? They're like, no, like the playing field is the same for everybody, and we just have a bigger war chest or like a bigger customer base to go from. Zac, when you think about like retention in this time, is there any like tactical things that you're changing, or is it like, look, keep doing Klaviyo, keep doing your flows? Like, are you building new flows? Are you playing more with loyalty? Are you exploring direct mail in a way that you haven't before? Is there anything that's changing? And again, like this is a time of uncertainty. Your answer will be weak.
I think that's the key point. It's like a time of uncertainty, right? So I don't necessarily think like the market has definitely changed per se. And I think the biggest statement you just made too is like, this is affecting everyone, right? This is not like, could be like a global collapse, not just like small brands are being pinched out or something like that, right? Like everyone's likely going to have the same issues where like costs are going up substantially. Are we going to be just looking at price hikes to help try to cover tariffs, right? So now that product that was, X is now Y from a cost perspective. So no, I don't necessarily think tactics are changing. I don't think the consumers are necessarily feeling it yet or seeing it yet. I think it's like a cause and effect that's coming. And I think the biggest conversation is like, where are brands at right now and what's their comfortability, right? So I think like some of this is like rolling the dice, rolling some risk. Like, hey, I'm betting that tariffs are not going to be here in 60 days. Press the gas. Let's just go. Hey, I'm scared. I don't have that risk tolerance. I'm not sure if my business is doing well and can sustain. Let's play this one a little bit safe right now until we see where we're going to end up. So I think that's more of the conversation than like tactically different. Like some brands are still performing well. Some brands are still growing month over month. Like people are still buying. Consumers aren't, saving every dollar they have yet because no one has really felt the effects of it yet. I think it's more of like business risk tolerance and trying to like place a couple bets on the table, and maybe they'll hit for you, maybe they won't. And I think that's kind of the state that we're in right now. So I think it's like where are owners, founders, marketers feeling comfortability and what does a business want to do and what risks are they willing to take and what can they sustain. So I think it's more about like business risk and business financial status that helps allow somebody to make a decision on what to do for the short term, not knowing where the long term is going to go.
I could see the twinkle in your eye when you talked about the founders who are more risk seeking and they're like, let's roll the dice and see what happens. And, I'm definitely that guy, which is probably dumb in this environment, but I'm like, let's go put our foot on the gas. It's like everything will work out. It's fine. Elliot, I wanted to create space for you. I saw you kind of leaning in.
Yeah, no, I'm actually super curious about what you were just talking about, Zach, just with the visibility you have. And maybe Matt has some more visibility than I do here. But when it comes to consumer demand, I know you said, Zach, like you haven't seen that shifting yet, but really like when you look at the portfolio of your brands that you're working with, like has there been no shift to like new customer acquisition cost? Obviously there's so many variables that come into play here. Like I know CPMs are like shifting wildly. I saw Temu was recently like just they paused everything on the Google side, which really like can affect CPMs. But really like, and I don't know, you Matt mentioned that that like annual sale has just happened again for that brand you work with. Like any shift that you're seeing in consumer demand and like new trends shaping?
Yeah, I mean, I can jump in. I would say that it seems to be tougher sledding for sure, right? And again, my primary background's in email and SMS, and certainly I really started last year, and I'm sure both of you guys saw this too, when it comes to your SMBs or even smaller businesses. From COVID to like 2023, like we could kind of accurately predict where things were going month over month. And then 2024, there was that shift back to retail, and Target, and not so much Target, sorry, but Walmart really started ramping up their efforts to go toe to toe with Amazon. And I felt, and then also stores were kind of for a little bit making a comeback. And so I felt it on the retention side where consumers were already more choosy where their dollars were going. And I feel like that's gotten harder now. So whether you want to evaluate it by on the email side, just revenue coming in, or RPR, revenue per recipient, or however you want to measure it, it's certainly lower than it has been in years past. So we're having to ramp up our efforts to try to capture the same amount of revenue for a lot of our brands. So I would say that even before the tariffs, Klaviyo came out with their annual consumer report in Q4, showing that a lot of consumers, depending on the vertical, were going to be a little bit more penny pinchers during the holiday going forward. I feel like there's probably, with our consumers, a little bit more apprehension to where they're still coming back, especially your loyal customers. They're still coming back and buying from their favorite brands, but instead of maybe every 45 days, it's every 60 days, which when you execute that out over a large populace, that adds up. I can even speak as a consumer, just trying to be more mindful instead of getting a haircut it's getting a little bit longer now, every 3 weeks, pushing that out to every 4 weeks. I feel like we're all making subconscious decisions, no matter what our stature is financially in life, just because of those unknowns. And so I see other consumers, I see that in my own life. And one thing I actually had a question for you, Elliot, being in CPG. I happen to just be in Europe and Amsterdam, and right now the US dollar and the euro are not, coming from the dollar perspective, not super great. But I was walking around with my fiance and they had like a Lululemon store, and I realized, I did the math, it was cheaper to buy stuff with the tax in Amsterdam and the euro conversion than it was to buy here in Philadelphia. And I saw that with food and bev products as well, like American made products that were cheaper to buy over in Europe. So I was curious, I assume with the size of your brand, you have a lot of retail space stores or items. So if you're seeing any growth in like other markets outside the US?
For sure. Brands, I can't say specifically that they're seeing a ton of growth outside the US. I can say for sure that over the last few years, most of the brands we've grown with have added a lot more retail doors. And I think, of course, like in an environment like this, when you're talking about CPM shifting and like everything changing on the digital side of things, having a larger wholesale side of your business is absolutely a nice thing to kind of be able to back into. Of course, like that's not safe or sure or certain, as like everyone found out in the financial crisis. Like POs are really only worth so much, but definitely like it can speak to like what has been really, really clear and just like an interesting anecdote, I think that's become really clear across all of our brands that have retail presences is that so many of the CPG brands that we work with that have a subscription based side of the business and offer retail have absolutely seen a big shift into retail or into subscription, but like the one-time purchase aspect has absolutely dropped. Like in recent years, when we comp like one-time purchase behavior year over year, we have seen like a huge divergence of more people opting into like subscribe and save offers. So definitely like brands that have attractive subscribe and save offers are thriving here. And the truth is like in an environment like this, having that additional guaranteed cash flow every month is helpful for the brands. Yeah. It looks like you have a question, Aaron.
Elliot, do you think that shift is because people are just like much more used to subscription businesses than they were 2 years ago, let alone 5 years ago, let alone 10?
I think it's a great question. And as a consumer, I would say yes, probably. It's interesting because like I think on the other side of that, there's a lot of people that are waking up to the fact that like, oh, I just checked my credit card this month and all of a sudden I have like 10 subscriptions and I should probably cut a few out. So I think like it's an interesting balancing act of like the subscription industry growing. I don't know like if anyone else has data on just subscription growing as like a customer behavior, but that's definitely what we've seen on our side.
Zach, jump on in.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think everyone's just switching over anyways. You head to websites and like now it's like pre-selected, like subscribe and save is the pre-selected option, right? Or potentially the only option. Or now there's starter kits that are just so aggressive on that first setup for, some, consumables and things like that, where it's 50% off, or you get a mug and a whisk and something else with that starter kit and things like that. So I think it's just so incentivized to get onto subscription. And at the same light, I think some of them are gaming the system, right? Where you subscribe, save, and then cancel and get that first purchase discount. But enough are sticking around and staying where there is a lift. So I think a lot of it too is just business strategy. And when you take the cost of acquisition into account, like some businesses are losing money on first purchase. A lot are, if you get realistic with it and you really want to, get to the reality of it, where a lot of these businesses only survive on subscription. So I think it's, becoming that emphasis, subscription only landing pages, subscription only testing. And I think that's why it's heading there, because the cost of acquisition is just rising so greatly that without customer retention and a strong subscription platform, you probably are not going to survive in D2C.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Matt was saying before about like if the repurchase rate used to be every 45 days and now it's 60, even if you don't have a subscription business, just like if that cycle is being extended, the more you can get people into the habit. I think the risk always is like, do you start annoying your customers? Do you make it harder to become a customer? Do you like get a reputation as like the company that's like greedy instead of the brand that's like really trying to meet the customer where they're at? And so I find like the companies that do this well are the ones who like create a lot of flexibility. Pause your subscription, right? Like that is such an important piece of this. Zach, I actually wanted to double click for a second because we've all kind of talked about it, but I'm curious, when you think about retention and you think about your brands, right? We always talk about like, hey, your email performance, your list performance. How much are you looking at the like top line of the business and understanding like, oh, they actually have a pretty big like Amazon component or like online wholesale component, offline wholesale. I don't know if any of your brands do brick and mortar, right? Matt, I'm sure yours do, right? Like, I'm curious how you're looking at like all the different channels and where like the work you guys are doing is actually impacting performance on other channels as well, how you match that back. Take that wherever you want. Yeah.
Yeah, complex. So Amazon's a huge ecosystem piece here, right? And it's certainly a massive pull on paid. The runoff is undoubtedly substantial if you're operating there. So I think looking at a couple pieces, unfortunately, without true attribution on that runoff, it's really hard to track that. So I mean, we keep a really close eye on branded search performance happening on Amazon, track that month over month, look for increases, what levers got pulled this month, and then tie that back to some sort of leverage pull on Amazon, hold out test out times for larger brands that are doing SEO, influencer. There's so many pieces and it's hard to stay noisy. Of course, we're watching 7-day click, and Meta specifically, just try to watch direct impact. But I think is a full ecosystem P&L. We're not too worried and looking at most of our brands on the runoff from paid to retail or to, big box or whatever that's going to be. Like that certainly is happening when you're in Target and you're in CVS, you're in Ulta. Like there is a level of runoff there as well, or just brand recognition that's happening. But a lot of brands we will look at blended P&L digitally and just track some sort of MER goal with them as well. But there has to be something to be tied to a channel. So for us on Meta, typically we watch 7-day. And then, we can look at a blended MER and, is the business healthy? Is the channel healthy? And kind of make some decisions based on, all the above. So yeah, tracking is definitely, and reporting financial is certainly become a much larger component of what we do here. And it has to be.
I think everything Zac gets so spot on. The attribution is a huge problem, right? Especially when you're dealing with Amazon, who doesn't want to give you much data past here's how much money you made after we take our margins from you. And I think that one of the components that we really fought for our brand in 2024 was coming out of COVID. A lot of brands were like, hey, we look at individual channels. We look at email and SMS as a channel. We look at Meta as a channel. We look at TikTok as a channel. We look at Amazon channel, blah, blah. And we really challenged our brands last year, like, hey, given the way the world's turning, we really need to realize that not every single boat is going to rise going forward. You might, if you're doing really well on Amazon and you don't have a ton of money, you're not a 7 or 8 figure brand that can afford to be on all these spaces, then let's focus on Amazon while also optimizing what things you want to keep the lights on for your D2C, right? On the flip side of that, though, this year, we've had quite a few, especially in the beauty space, quite a few beauty brands come back to us because I choose my words carefully so they don't come at me as like a lawyer. One of the major beauty box stores that just had a major sale, a lot of our brands who did really well there, who are end cap brands, came back to us and said, hey, our business at X is really struggling month over month for 3 straight quarters. We now need to pull back our spend, pushing to their site, and transition into how to optimize our D2C. And so we're starting to see that shift. I don't know if it's necessarily tied. I know we kind of moved away from this conversation, tied to like the tariffs going on, but I've certainly seen that's definitely an area of focus for a lot of our beauty brands, is like now putting the spotlight back on themselves versus dealing with the demons at some of these box stores. I do have one major men's beauty brand that focuses on like naturally derived deodorants and body washes, etc. And for a long time, they put a heavy focus on their D2C site alongside their retail business. But over the last 2 quarters, they started making that shift. And so I would say about half of our creative actually pushes, from an email and SMS perspective and from paid, actually pushes links to either a store finder or directly to their product pages on Target or Walmart, which is definitely new. I think brands would have been more apprehensive about that in the past, but they just made the decision like, hey, basically, we don't care what our DTC looks like. It's there to build brand awareness. And then when someone's walking down the aisle at Walmart or they are shopping on Amazon, that's where they're going to purchase.
I love it. Elliot, before I hand off to you, I just want to reflect on like, we work with some CPG. We also work with like a lot of fashion brands. One of my favorite is Psycho Bunny, so in Montreal as well. And I've had the pleasure to work with this team for like a decade across like every single company I've kind of been walking through. And we gave them a report 6 months ago about performance on online. And the report was really good about one of our products. It doesn't matter what the numbers were. And then they were like, we actually see 2x the impact. We just see a ton of impact from like, if you do a matchback for like in-store locally by like people who you've helped us target. And we're like, we see that too, but we didn't think that you would believe us. So we just didn't mention it. And it was like the first brand that I talked to where they were like, yeah, we don't really like, the goal is to build the business. And like, we're not going to be like dogmatic about this channel needs to perform. So Matt, anyway, just like, I see what you're saying, and I've seen it like change over literally in the last couple of years. It's gone much more from like, we've got to optimize email and SMS and retargeting to like, let's go build the business. Elliot, CPG, obviously like subscription, end cap, like wholesale is such a big opportunity for those brands. What are you seeing? What shifted, please?
For sure. So the biggest things, and honestly, if any CPG subscription brands are watching this, like I think this is something that should be implemented for everyone. Most brands that I still audit today, brands that we onboard, like still use the default like Shopify placed order metric inside of Klaviyo. Klaviyo for a long time, it's funny, like they just sent out an email announcing it, I think last week, but they've had this feature for a long time to just create custom metrics inside the platform that you can use for reporting on campaigns, flow data, everything that's involved. And basically, like if you are a CPG subscription brand that's watching this, you should have a custom metric set up inside of Klaviyo to remove all recurring subscription orders. because for basically all brands that I audit still, like you look at their campaigns, they're like, we're generating $5,000 in revenue each time we send a campaign. And realistically, like with Klaviyo's default attribution window, which is usually 5-day open, 5-day click, if you send a campaign to someone and they open it and then their automatic recurring subscription from Recharge or Skio or whoever happens within 5 days, like that's going to be attributed to that campaign. So like the first thing all brands should do is have a really accurate look at like what the incremental revenue they're generating from their campaigns and their flows actually is. It's a really easy thing to set up. So that's like the first step, have a clear idea of like what is actually working. On the same token, like if you are using a Skio or a Recharge, like you can then change your custom metric or the metric that you're looking at for your reporting to like new subscriptions started. So like which campaigns that you're sending are actually driving new subscriptions, like which flow messages are actually driving new net subscriptions. So like having real data in place, it like sounds simple, but most brands, like especially on the smaller end, don't actually know like what they're looking at and what the real data is. So that's like where I would start, like have a clear picture. And then to answer your question a little bit more specifically, Aaron, I think like one thing that's been big, I think Matt touched on it, is definitely like linking out to specific retailers' product pages, like linking out to their like brand's product page on a target, let's say, has become a more popular strategy for sure to just push sell through at these stores and then have their brands live as their website live as like a brand experience, let's say a brand education touch point versus like pure selling. So I think like 5 years ago, let's say, like every website, like the main KPI was sales and revenue. And I think that is for larger brands that are growing their retail presence, shifting to becoming like an educational touch point to then drive more acquisition through retailers. So that's been a big. And then like the last thing I'll mention is, I don't know if any of you have worked with Aisle before to offer like discount codes for people shopping in retail. It's a really, really interesting platform. But basically you can send someone an email promoting your Aisle discount code or discount that's available. And essentially all they do is they buy the product in store. So they can go buy it at Target. They send a receipt to you via text, and then they get issued basically like there's a few ways to redeem, I think, but it can be like a Visa gift card for 10% of the purchase value you made in retail. So it's a really interesting strategy that we've seen work to push people to retail with an incentive.
That's super cool. Zach, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that retail component, I don't think all of our brands really agree with that, Elliot, on that side of things. I think some of it really is there's a demand that has to be met. Like to be in Ulta, like even to get on the shelves, like if you're not moving 10K a week on Ulta's website, they won't even get you placement in big box. So I think some of that isn't that people actually want to just use their website as like a vanity for education. I think it's that if you want to sustain and maintain in big box, if you're not moving and marketing and supporting big box, they're going to pull you from shelves, and that's going to be a massive hit.
For
So
sure.
I think it isn't really about, I think everyone wants to own their customers. You lose that tracking, you lose that ownership. But if you're not moving in big box, you're going to lose big box. And I think that's the real reason why that's actually happening. Like why we are running ads to these offsites or running that to those, to those big box retailers isn't because it's necessarily what's most beneficial for D2C where you own your customer, but it's because it's what has to be done to maintain it, to stay there. That's kind of what I'm seeing on my side. So I think it's more of a shift of it's competitive. There's only so much shelf space, and that's what you have to do to stay on those shelves or get on those shelves from web only.
For sure. That's a super interesting perspective, Zach, that like I haven't had conversations with my clients. So I'm actually really happy you brought that up. I'm curious to know what metrics, if any, like you're talking to clients about to monitor that sell-through, and if it's like what the push-pull looks like for them letting you know, like, hey, we're at 50% sell-through, we need to be at 70%, let's say, which means like we need to up traffic to X, Y, Z.
Sure. Cool. One instance right now, we're working with a beauty brand that is trying to get back on shelves in Ulta. They're only on retail right now online, and they need to achieve that 10K number, for example, is their benchmark from Ulta to get back in to big box. So we essentially just take a look at them on a weekly basis and a daily basis. What are their Ulta sales? They get pretty solid reporting back from Ulta. We are trying to run ads and then understand, hey, this week we did X, Y, and Z. We sent an email, we were running Criteo, we had some Facebook ads running traffic, do some holdouts this week. We'll just run Meta, let's layer in Criteo, and then we have our baseline and can kind of piece together like what's happening. They have a baseline of what's moving organically if we were to run nothing. So do some holdouts, and then quickly start layering in other layers to see what needs to be done to hit that. And then understanding, hey, like, is the balance making sense? We just spent 5K on ads this week and we only achieved 7 with a organic baseline of 2. Like, we're at a 1 ROAS return. Does this even make sense? Do we need to improve efficiencies? To do that, we can't just burn and churn to get back on the shelves of big box to some extent. Like, it is a marketing cost, but at some level, it's like, we have to have some level of efficiencies to do that. So yeah, really just getting reporting back from big box and just having that open conversation, probably some sort of sheet to track that in daily and weekly with them and pull those levers accordingly.
Super, super interesting. And I'm just curious to know, like, what percentage of brands do you think are like aware of the significance of this strategy to get back into big box or to like really hit the numbers they want to hit?
Yeah, I think it's more about having, I think a lot of them are aware. I think it's a lack of agency to brand communication, especially even just in the financials through and through. Like, we used to not really talk about that 5 years ago, to be honest. And like now, like day one, like we're talking about, contribution margin 1, contribution margin 2, where those things are falling, how we have to have cost structure set up in Meta if you have multiple SKUs across your portfolio that are sitting on different margins. So I think we're just getting a lot more financially aggressive and I guess tactful with these brands. So it's just conversations we're having. And until I'm like, hey, like, what are your goals? What are these things? They're not even knowing or thinking they need to share them with us at times. And it's more of me prodding, more of my team prodding to get this information. And they're like, oh, wow, you guys are a more effective partner. Like, there's actually a lot we can collaborate on here. Like, we didn't know we should be doing X, Y, and Z with you. So I think it's taking a financial prowess as an agency and not just sitting back and just like, hey, you need to be at a 2 ROAS. And it's like, do we? Maybe we need to be at a 3. Maybe we need to be at a 1-2, right? Like, what are those actual financial metrics that maybe even with a savvy CFO might not be worked out through and through? So really depends on the sophistication of the team. And I think it's more in our job as the agency to ask these questions than just expect your brands to know what to do and what to tell you. They have the information, I guess, simply put, and it's just getting it from them, extracting it, and getting that data back from them.
Yeah, 100%. No, I'm super, super happy you brought that up. That gives me some more things to think about. And I will say, like, we're moving this kind of a different conversation for another day probably, but like I think the entire like agency space is moving from a place of being like primarily like deliverables driven to more value driven and strategy driven.
We're not in 2021, 2022 where it's just growth at all costs. Like we're growth at profitability now. It's not growth at all costs. Dollars are not accessible the way they were.
Profitable growth for the win. I love this.
That's it. And I think like the biggest takeaway for me here, the light bulb that kind of just clicked, is like we go out of our way to ask brands like a certain set of questions that I think like they wouldn't, well, I know like they don't probe us for, but like not that sophisticated at the retail side. So I'm going to add that question to our list. But like, I think the light bulb that just went off is that brands are still stuck in that kind of like 2021, let's say, like level of communication with their agencies. And like they haven't necessarily adjusted, from what I can see, to like new levels of expectations of what they should expect from their agency and like what type of data they should be sharing, what type of KPIs they should be sharing. And I think like
it's our job to stimulate that conversation. No brands come to us and they're just like, here's my P&L, like these are my gross margins. Like a few of them are here and there, but if I look across the size of our portfolio, it's not the mass amounts. But honestly, like when we're onboarding, that's like one of the first things we're asking in our questionnaire and like in our onboarding meetings to get set up and understand those data points. Like we are prompting these conversations, and no one has told me in the past couple of years, no, I'm not going to tell you this information. Like we're NDA'd, like we're a partner here. Like they're working in aggregate, but if you don't ask, they won't tell, because a lot of them don't think about that. They're like, you're just buying media or you're just sending emails. And they're not necessarily tying back to what your goal is. So I think it's our job to ask those questions. It's our job to become more financially savvy and actually start building out, financial reporting and sophistication as an agency that we're in just a different landscape of.
Zac, awesome. I love the framing. We work with a ton of partners, and like a key differentiator, I think, are the ones who are thinking like end-to-end business versus like, hey, I've got to do this and with this metric. It's the same as we were talking about before. The brands that are performing well are the ones who are not like thinking segmented, but really looking at the whole. Guys, we've got about 10 minutes. I want to do the perfunctory AI question. We need to say AI. We've said tariffs. My question is there anything that you're seeing right now that is really useful in the AI space, either for your clients, like their software that they're using that you're like, look, I deeply believe in this now, or hey, I'm placing a bet in 6 months, it's going to be useful, or for you guys internally in terms of serving your clients that you've been able to create more leverage or create better results or anything else? Matt, I want to start with you. And then after we do a little bit about this, hopefully you guys can tease out some insights that are like practical or like tools that are useful. If not, my fault. I do want to like close with just like any last like one piece of advice for D2C, plus where folks can find you. But Matt, first things first, tell me a little bit about AI for you guys, what you're seeing.
Yeah. I love AI, and I think that there's been a big conversational shift, at least in my opinion, in the last year, where a year ago you were almost nervous to tell a client that we rely on AI to get our job done because they'd be like, "Then why are we paying you?" But now it's everywhere, and you log into Klaviyo, you log into Attentive. My CEO, like 2 weeks ago, said that every department has to prove like what was the number, like 50% of your job can be done by AI, like whatever he said. I think that AI is extremely powerful. Obviously, it's extremely powerful, but I don't think most people take the time to get to know the platform to drive it. So yes, all of like Klaviyo and all these places have AI in there, and they all choose which infrastructure they're going to build off of. Like I personally use ChatGPT all the time. I pay for it, and it's not. And sure, I use it when I travel. Where should I eat in this neighborhood? Yeah, pull up reviews. But what I love about it, and what I don't think a lot of consumers know, or a lot of, especially if you have like small mom pop shop brands or whatever, maybe even director of marketing at a bigger business, they might not know you can actually set up essentially programming and run it through a bunch of tests and say, I want to save this as a command and never have to tell you to do this again step by step. So it really streamlines a lot of what we do. I use it especially for like Klaviyo analytics. And I love my friends at Klaviyo, but they also know that I have a lot of issues with their analytics. And so I like to pull the raw data and look at 6, 7 years of data from a brand, have ChatGPT analyze that in a lot quicker fashion. But I, I think that there's a lot of things, a lot of fear mongering on some hands, and then there's also people like me that are probably too much on the evangelizing side of AI. But I think it's a really powerful tool that, when used effectively, can help brands become more profitable. And ultimately, as Zach's been making a point of, like, that's the most important thing right now to brands. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I use it in pretty much every I use some facet of AI in almost every single thing that I do, in every single platform, and looking forward to seeing its growth.
Thanks. Elliot, anything tools that you're seeing your clients use or that you're experimenting with that feel good, or anything in terms of like you guys building?
For sure. So I definitely still think that where we're at as of today, like AI is still most beneficial and most useful like on the workflow side of things. Like if you're looking to have like a one and done get end results with an AI tool, I haven't seen anything, at least like in our job function, that's blown my mind in terms of like plug in all the raw data and it's going to give you like better insights than a strategist can pull. But in the workflow side of things, like extracting that data and like pulling a high level analysis that a strategist can then review, like is obviously a lot more efficient. So it's adding efficiencies to the workflows. One tool that has blown my mind that like isn't up to speed for us to use at the agency yet, just because the quality of design that our clients hold us to, it can't achieve yet. But like for anyone who's not a fit to work with us, that I think has the chops to like handle email SMS strategy in-house, there's a tool called Ripple AI. Not sure if anyone's familiar, but basically it plugs in, it integrates with Shopify and it integrates with Klaviyo. So basically you can put in a prompt like build me a Mother's Day email, let's say. And what it's going to do is it's going to build a Mother's Day email using like products that it thinks can make sense. I believe that's like part of the integration that it's pulling from your Shopify store. It'll use the, like knowledge that it has about the brand to just contextualize everything for Mother's Day. And like from there, you can basically in 3 clicks, like have a Mother's Day email that you can then schedule inside of the platform to the segments you want to send to at the time you want to send to, and like never have to go into Klaviyo. So like in terms of a really amazing workflow for brands that like don't have the bandwidth to send their own like decent campaigns. Like I said, it's not like a mind-blowing design that you would get from like a high quality agency, let's say. But I'm also the first person to say like design's not what is going to actually convert someone into buying your products 9 times out of 10. So that is probably the best tool on the market that I've seen.
That's cool. I mean, I think the framing in general is like, what is the job to be done? And like the fact that it may not get you all the way there is like, can it enable you or empower you at all? Is also very useful. Zach, last but not least, any tools you guys are playing around with, anything you're seeing both internally or externally?
Yeah, I mean, using it across a lot of spheres here. I guess like something that's pre-built. I think like one of the big things, like, hey, you can build your own agent, but that takes some actual work and some plumbing and some expense. I think like, and other thing is people are not, there's a little bit of time investment, right? Like it's not just like, do this for me and it just gets done. And I think that's where some of the frustrations coming from, or like some of the time spent. But I guess one like a software partner that I think is doing a really good job and I think is going to be a really good piece in the creative space is Motion. They just rolled out some agents that are awesome. Rally, for example, their deep research tool is been absolutely killer. Just from like a research analysis on just reviews. So I think there's some like really awesome stuff coming. I think they're thinking about it in a really practical way. They're really thinking about the plumbing that goes into building these agents and are making things pretty sophisticated. So I think they're just getting started and they have a lot on the come from what I understand. But out of the gate, I think it's like actually practical, actually developing real result and not getting you like halfway there stuff. It's like real usable insights across some of their agents. So
I hear you. All right, so Ripple and Motion, I appreciate it. It's been fun for us because we're Orita.ai, but we're a machine learning team. It's like we're like ML, AI, but like ML. And it's pretty delightful because when we talk to investors, we talk to people and they're like, yeah, we see all this like personalization stuff going on. And we're like, that's not us. We're the math guys who are telling you who's actually like listening and wants to hear from you. And like, there will be this amazing creative like boom that happens in the coming years, right? Because of these tools and more that makes everything personalized. But it is fun just kind of like seeing this whole space develop. All right, we got a couple minutes. Just in closing, would love to find out where you guys all are. And if you have any like last quick piece of advice, great. If not, don't feel pressure to say it. I'm gonna go reverse order right here. So Matt, you get to close. So Zac and then Elliot and then Matt, please.
So I am currently in
Matt,
Philadelphia.
you're last. You don't get
Oh,
it.
I'm last?
You're the most important.
Oh, I thought you said Matt first. Oh, no, I thought it was the
I
least
screwed it
important.
up. This is my bad, but we're saving you. You've got the most pressure. Zac, you got the
Great.
least pressure.
cool. Yeah. I mean, I think just kind of wrap things up. Yeah. I mean, you can find us at Lilo Social, LILOsocial.com. You can find me on Extra LinkedIn, just under Zac Fromson. I don't have too many big insights to drop. I think drop some good stuff here. So I'll kind of let the other guys just wrap some stuff up here.
You're good, man. Thank you. Elliot.
Cool. You can find Dispatch at the dispatch.agency, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Elliot Kovac. Final mind-blowing insights. I would just say like be intentional. I think that's really like the takeaway for me from this conversation. It's not really the time to just like continue sending emails just to send emails. Just being intentional about like what products do we want to promote? What is the current like marketing language that actually makes sense to speak to our customers in is the takeaway here.
Thank you. All right, Matt. Now it's finally your time to shine. Don't blow it.
So I'm at QDL Agency. You can find us at qdlagency.com. Based out of Los Angeles, I am in Philadelphia currently, originally from the Pacific Northwest. My one piece of advice is probably to quote Aaron Rodgers incorrectly, relax, don't panic. RELAX. I think that given the continuum that we're living in right now, it's very easy to overreact. But don't panic, just relax, evaluate. Probably everyone's dad's favorite quote is measure twice, cut once. And I think that's the environment we're in right now. And that's what I would tell people. Just relax, don't panic, and make sure you're measuring twice.
I can't believe you didn't quote Allen Iverson, given that you live in Philadelphia and we weren't talking about practice, but this is fine. Very, very good way to end this. Thank you. Fellas, thank you all. Really appreciate your time. I learned a lot. I took a whole page worth of notes. Hopefully this is useful for everybody else. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks for having us.
Everyone.